Hello, everybody. Welcome to the weekly Career Alchemy Call, where we talk about all things career and job search and mindset and your spiritual intelligence and evolution. And today we're going to talk about something very interesting. Um, it's about how uh, a colleague of an alchemist. So one of the alchemists, her colleague, uh, helped make her a better human. Doesn't that sound intriguing? But I want to welcome everyone that's here first. I want to just say hello. Say hello to all the people out there on YouTube. Say hello to all the people on Facebook and Instagram. And of course, LinkedIn. You can always DM me on LinkedIn or message me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube if you want to talk further about your career and about if you're thinking about getting a coach. I write down mantras. I admit it. I have a list of them, and I have pages of them. But the when I hear something good, so can you see this? So I'm always adding. Here's some, and then I keep adding, and I will read these. They shift my energy. They put me in a place of feeling more connected to myself, more calm, and I would say more optimistic, or it builds the belief in me and the work that I'm doing, and so the one that I wanted to share today that I added is really super strong belief for myself, and also my belief for all of you out there is that everyone benefits from coaching. Everyone's lives get better when you have a coach. And I say that for myself. I, of course, have hired many, many coaches over from building my business coaches to life coaches I am someone that I don't think it's about necessarily always looking outside of myself for answers. I truly think it's about getting unstuck and having some level of accountability, helping to gain some clarity where I might be feeling confused at that moment in time. So it isn't like I have life coaches and career coaches and business coaches all the time, right? Like I might go, for example, I was in a business coaching community for a year. I took 6 months off. I went back for another year. I'm now taking 6 months off. I have every intention of going back. They run in 6 month cycles. I have every intention of going back and starting back up in January. I find it super beneficial. And I also, right now, am integrating, practicing, and building, I guess, my expertise on the things that I've been taught to me, that I have been learning about myself, and the skills that I have been building. And so it isn't that at every point in my life I think I need a coach. I do like them, and I think that it isn't, like I said, about me looking necessarily outside of myself, but me um, I'm not on an island. We're not meant to be on an island, right? We're meant to be in community. And so having this community of people who have some expertise, perhaps, maybe they're one step ahead of me, um, to bounce ideas off of and to set my goals with, super, super helpful. And so all going back to this idea, this new thought that everyone's lives get better when we have a coach, when we have somebody who is alongside us as we transition through some of the harder parts of life. And there's just a whole slew of coaches out there for all kinds of things. Of course, I happen to be a career wayfinder coach, so helping people find their way in their career with that not only practical job search and negotiation and career elevation experience that I have all those years helping people through my recruiting business, but then also all of my personal growth work that I bring for the spiritual intelligence side of us, where we really tune into our inner wisdom and authority, and that we are, even when we're working with someone or gathering support and help from outside of ourselves, that our inner authority is so strong, that our inner wisdom and our connection to that inner voice is so loud, not too loud, but uh, we understand how to communicate with. When you build your spiritual intelligence, you understand how your inner wisdom and your spirit guides perhaps are communicating with you. And then um, that everything kind of bumps back up against that as like, okay, does this feel like a truth to me? Does this, did some yellow flag pop up right there that I consider, your spiritual wisdom saying, hey, take a look at this, or hey, slow down, or hey, you're just scared. Let's do this, or whatever it is that your inner wisdom is offering to you, that becomes a real relationship built on trust and action taking too. So I didn't know I was going to talk about all of that, but yes, I truly, absolutely believe that all of our lives are better when we're working with a coach. That it just, we don't have to go it alone, and that it's fun. It really is fun. So here we go. So let me talk about, and if you're interested in coaching, DM me, or if you'd like to join Career Alchemy Academy, where the doors are always open for that community. And I always think, I'm a fan of both group and one-on-one coaching. I do both concurrently often because they offer me different things. And so um, if you're not sure, let's get on a call and we'll see what's the best path for you. Today, how an alchemist, the colleague's mistake made the alchemist a better human. So it was just last week, right before our live coaching call. So generally, we were at noon on Tuesdays. All the calls are recorded, Central Time, right? All the calls are recorded and they go into the Career Alchemy dashboard. So if you can't make a call, you can listen to the recording. But when you come live, I ask who would like coaching, and we coach around all kinds of things. Again, the practical job search stuff and some ideas around networking or thoughts about where to go network. The community is across the United States. It's not just Chicago based. I'm in Chicago, but just FYI. And we've had Canadians and women from India before as well. So we're international, but the process, just in case you're wondering, is, we arrive on Zoom and I ask who'd like some coaching, and then people raise their hands and we go to coaching. So on this particular day, the alchemist raises her hand and she said, the first thing she said was, I was so glad when I looked at my calendar that this call was 15 minutes away. The event that occurred happened right before a Career Alchemy call. And she said, I just knew that I was coming to the place that I was going to be able to get the support I needed and help me sort of have a different perspective about the situation, versus how I was feeling and how I was thinking about acting in the moment. So, kudos to her for recognizing that she was stirred up a little bit about the event and that she had support available to her, and she raised her hand and asked for it. So anyway, so she comes in, she raises her hand, and she said, here's what happened. she was preparing. They had been working on a report for an executive for a while, her and her team, and they were. It was just the final version was sent to her before submitting. She was going to submit to the executive, and she was doing a quick look-see, and she noticed a pretty glaring mistake that her colleague did, and that her colleague should have caught before sending to her, and that it didn't get caught. And fortunately, of course, she caught it ahead of time, but it left her feeling, as she said, I was pissed. I was frustrated about how this might have happened. And I absolutely was not sending love to my colleague. I was blaming the colleague and so on. And so she was definitely, like I said, stirred up. And having those, and no surprise, right? You've been working really hard on something, you're ready to deliver, and you're like, no, like now this is going to be delayed. And as she said, now I was going to have to go in and do the work because a colleague had sent it to her and then was off out of office, right? And she's like, so now the work falls to her. So that's part of her frustration and anger. And so, here's what happened. Here's how I'm feeling. But I've been asking myself just in the past 15 minutes before this call, and I think it's a real alchemist question. This is the thing that an alchemist would think is, how can I be a better human in this moment? Isn't that a great question? How can I be a better human in this moment? So she brings it to coaching, and we talk through some of that. And, using the mindset model, which is one of our tools, but really considering the circumstance as always is neutral. So the circumstance of the report and the colleague making mistake on the report, if we just consider that neutral and we start to look how we're thinking about our colleague and how we're thinking about the mistake and how that's creating less than optimal feelings. And then when we use the tool of the mindset model, we can intentionally decide how we'd rather feel about our colleague, how we'd rather feel about the mistake, the event, the circumstance, and choose some different thoughts before taking actions. Because if you're feeling all that frustration, just imagine the action, what actions might have come out of that if you reacted instead of using the alchemist tool of the model of thought work, and also bringing it and getting support from me as her coach and the community in general, just the feeling of their support as you work through this, and the support that happens in chat too, right? So we coached around that question, and then I don't know, popped into my head. I really think my spiritual guides love coaching through me. And the question that they suggested I ask was, if this situation was in fact working for your benefit, how might that be true? And she's like, and I think a lot of times, especially when it's someone else's mistake, right? We didn't cause it. We don't often think about how a situation might actually be benefiting us, even beyond the fact that she caught the error. That was fortunate, but it wasn't necessarily a benefit for her, other than it didn't go to the executive with the glaring mistake. So that, I guess you could say, benefited her from getting blowback, right? So we could add that as benefit. But I asked her, I said, just right off the top of your head, what are 3 things you can think of that this situation, how it happened, was for your benefit? And pretty darn quickly, she said, because we had already done some coaching, and she'd been kind of talked off the ledge, her emotions had been regulated. She had moved into what I call that calm center vibe that alchemists bring to every situation. She was already there, which of course expands your capacity to recognize that it's not all bad, right? That there are actually some some benefits from any situation. So first and foremost, she said, it calls to my attention that perhaps there's some, communication, some discussion we can have around our process of communication and how that's been working, because that this fell through the cracks, says to me that maybe I didn't communicate as clearly as I could have. I say this a lot, over the years as a recruiter, working with people from different countries, because I spent a lot of time recruiting for technologists, and I would argue that um, that sector, from software engineering up to VP leadership, that those and every, title that you can think of in between, that is probably the most diverse community, like with inside an organization of any size, that their most diverse team might be the technology team. Because of course, there's offshoring that happens. And even I think back into the 90s when we had some of the smartest Russians coming over and getting citizenship, and just these really bright engineers that moved into technology. So, from the it's just a very diverse community that I love, that I'm a part of. But I used to always say that it's less about the words that you're saying, because they would be concerned about, their English, their, how their English sounded. And I said, it isn't necessarily that you had the verb tense correct. It's that the person understood what you had to say. That's communication. I could speak perfect in English, perfect grammar, and if you did not understand what I was saying, there's a communication breakdown. But I could speak imperfect English and you completely grokked it, right? You completely understood what I was saying. Now we've communicated. And so the big benefit is that it was shining a light on, perhaps there was a communication breakdown happening between her and her colleagues. And she had now an opportunity to see how that might be improved. The second thing about it that is, again, an absolute alchemist tool that we talk about and work on, is this idea of expanding our capacity to be with all of it. So she had an opportunity to ask herself, how could I be a better human? So I guess it's slightly different. So it's two things. So let me start with the opportunity to expand your capacity to be with all of it, all of the hard emotions. So she now recognizes, just through the process that she took, that she felt the hard emotions, but she didn't react to those, but that she used, through coaching and her own skills that she's built around regulating emotions and checking with her thoughts, and knowing that it's always in her agency to decide that she wants to feel differently, and she simply can do that by thinking differently. And so that was another benefit, is that she saw that she could be with those hard emotions, those initial flare-ups, right, that we get, but didn't let them become the whole story. And then finally, that she also could had an opportunity to see what it meant to be a better human. Like, what does that, when we say that, what does that mean? It means that we don't react immediately from a place of stirred up feelings, that we give a few beats, right? I remember parenting 101 was, if your kid's starting to get on your nerves, just say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. or take a walk, remove yourself from the room, and these strategies work really good at all ages and in all situations. I always said that becoming a parent and learning how to be a parent made me a better leader of people. At the beginning of, before I had kids, and when I was at the beginning of my career of hiring and leading teams, I absolutely was uh, not great at it. Not great at it. Of course, I was at the beginning, and the beginning isn't always where the greatness just it emerges from the beginning. You have to have a beginning in order for your greatness to eventually come out. And I do think, I don't know if I'm a great leader, but I do think I've become a much, much better leader. And part of that was what I learned from being a parent. So all to say that this opportunity, this hard opportunity, gave her a chance to first look at just practical like communication process and system, and getting feedback like, here's what I'm asking you, what did you hear, that sort of thing. It also gave her an opportunity to realize that she didn't have to react, that she could sit with the hard feelings and then use her mindset work, her thought work that she knows so well, and start to shift her energies and her emotions, regulating those can help her to react less harshly. So being a better human that way, and also getting to a place where your focus is wider, and you can start to have more compassion for whatever that person might have been going through. We don't know. And also for ourselves, for our kind of dark side showing up. I think that I do think that the fear part of our brain is the go-to in all situations, especially when we're confronted with something that is frustrating us. It feels to the brain like, we're being attacked in some way. And so it's like, okay, shut down the digestion, narrow the focus. Let's just focus here. And we need to fight against this, right? And that's just our initial human way of reacting. But now we know that we aren't in danger, right? And so that we can be a different human in that situation. So those things. So asking yourself how this might have benefited her, and along with the one we discovered even at the beginning of today's session around that, she did it. She benefited by not sending the report without seeing the mistake, and then having to deal with that blowback as well. So the bigger thing I would say about all of this is that life is 50-50. We're going to have ease in our days. We're going to have joyful moments in our days. We're going to have reasons to celebrate. And we're also going to have the hard and the messy. And once we accept that, and we decide that we're going to be there for all of it in our best human capacity that we can in that moment, and using all the tools we might have to calm and regulate our emotions, to create thoughts that are more productive and useful, to open our hearts, and empathy and compassion to the others involved. That once we decide that we're not going to be our best human only when things are easy or joyful, but that we are going to be our best human in the hard, and that we accept that the hard it's gonna go like this. We're gonna have, that whole thing of like, how come like when my relationship is on fire, wonderful, everything is working there, relationships with my partner, relationship with my kids, and then work is, going to, I don't know if I can swear on LinkedIn, but you know what I'm saying. It's going to it. And, sometimes it feels like, why isn't everything always, why can't everything be clicking on all really great cylinders all at once? In fact, they do. I think there are many moments where things are clicking on all cylinders, and we're so immune to celebrating those and tuning into those that we gloss over them, and then and focus all our energy and attention on the hard and the messy, because of course they're like the squeaky wheel demanding our attention. So 50-50, you're going to have times when everything seems joyful and easy, and let's celebrate those. We're going to have times when everything may seem hard and messy, and let's recognize that we can be with that. We have tools. You have support through Career Alchemy Academy and through coaching, because everyone's lives get better when we're coaching, right? So this week, pay some attention to the areas of celebration that are available to you, appreciating the ease that might be happening in areas of your life. And with the hard and messy, tell yourself, how is this working for my benefit? How is this making me a better human? And then I think by doing that you'll find that you're overall, it isn't this bigger swing, that we start to have a more balanced emotional life. We have more, I can truly say that when hard and messy comes my way, I am 95% of the time, and very quickly can get to a place of calm and reception of, oh, okay, it's this right now. And also not forgetting that there's also the ease and areas of my life that I can appreciate and rest in, and then get back to it, right? So that's what I have to offer you this week. Inside Career Alchemy Academy. Sign up for the blog. This is a repurposing of the blog that I write. Generally, almost always, what I'm talking about comes from that, but I usually, as you can tell, I have tangents I go down. Maybe you can't, but I do. And so, sign up for the blog, get to know me a little more. Love to have you in my life. Love to be the coach that's helping you make everything in your life better. And wishing you the best of the tail end of summer that we are in, and peace and love always. And let's get connected. Let's stay connected.